Yes, so I'll be starting from the beginning. So, good evening, respected panelists, participants, and viewers. I, Taifur Khan, along with my co-moderator, Ms. Shreyanshi Sarkar, on behalf of Jogesh Chandra Chaudhary Law College Students Union, would like to welcome you on this panel discussion. Today's topic is international corporate law with respect to India's relationship with various countries. So let's introduce our respected panelists first. I would like to request my co-moderator to start introducing the panelists.
Yes, thank you, Pelfu. Uh, so our first panelist is Mr. Pankil Bonthial. He is a successful corporate and IP attorney. He has completed his Master in Laws from Anglia Ruskin University, Cambridge. He is the founder of Legaverse, which is in Pune, India. He provides numerous legal services, starting right from company incorporation, providing contracts, registering intellectual properties, that is, patents, trademarks, and copyrights, and manages an efficient team of lawyers. He also helps business and startups from around the globe with all types of legal, compliance, and taxation services.
Thank you, Shreyanshi.
Thank you, sir. Uh, Daifuda,
Shreyanshi, you're mute.
Daifuda, you there? Okay. So our second panelist is Mr. Gautam Pratap Rai Matani. Advocate Gautam Pratap Rai Matani is a richly experienced personnel in corporate and cyber laws. He has always been at the helm of leadership positions, from being a GDPR and GST practitioner to a trademark attorney. Currently working at MKU Limited as an in-house legal and IPR counsel head. He has driven massive legal work system ranging from international laws and export compliances to the Ministry of Defense. He is an alumnus of University of Leeds, England, and has previously been associated with reputed organizations such as Supremo Amicus, Indian Legal Solutions, Legal Desire. He engages himself with international lawyers for setting up of companies and drafting JV agreements. He is expertise in technology transfer agreements. He is well versed with drafting of agreements between international corporations and government agencies as well.
Thank you, Shreyanshi.
Thank you, sir. Our next panelist is Sir Achyut Govindam. Achyut Govindam, sir, is an advocate primarily practicing and appearing before the Honorable High Court of Madhya Pradesh and courts and tribunals across the country. He graduated from the University of Leeds with a degree of Master of Laws in International Law. He is the founder and the first elected secretary of Lawyers Action Group, a non-government and not-for-profit organization of lawyers. Briefly, he has also worked as a law researcher for the Committee of Reforms in Criminal Law set up by and under the aegis of the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. He has researched and authored a dissertation on multi-party investment arbitration under the supervision of Dr. Sarah Brown, a qualified solicitor in England and Wales.
Hi, good evening to all. How are you? I hope you all are well. So let's commence whatever we have to discuss.
Okay, so once again, I welcome you all in today's panel discussion. So let's begin with the first topic of our discussion. So our first topic is, what is international corporate law? What is India's contribution to the same? Sir, please put in your views.
Shreyanshi,
Yes.
I'm not sure. I mean, I was not able to hear you. I'm not sure about Gautam and Achyut.
Okay, sir, I'll
Were you
repeat.
guys able to hear?
So I'll repeat. What is international corporate law, and what is India's contribution in the same?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, is there any process? I mean, whether who's going first, who's going second, or anybody can speak?
No, sir. Any of you can speak.
I guess any three of us can take a lead on this.
I'll
Okay,
just
so
take a minute and come back. So if you can start, I'm so sorry.
It's okay, sir. No.
sure, no issues. No issues. So, regarding corporate law, international corporate law, am I audible to you guys?
Yes, sir. You're clearly audible.
Okay, so corporate law works about the structuring of the companies. If you talk about corporate law, I'll talk about corporate law, then I'll talk about international corporate law. So corporate law is when, as a lawyer, you register a company, or you decide the functioning of a company as a incorporator of that company. That is where corporate law comes into the picture. And if we specifically talk about international corporate law, so when as the name suggests, international corporate law, if you deal with the business law and the corporate law internationally, if you have a clientele, if you have a client company who's doing business, they're based out of India, but they're doing business across the globe, maybe in US, maybe in UK and Europe. So if they're dealing into a business globally, then it comes under international corporate law. You, as a lawyer, you providing them your services, as a law firm, you providing them your services, that comes under international corporate law. And now, basically, if you talk specifically about the corporate law, the functioning, the structuring of a company comes into the purview of corporate law. And I guess as a whole, I can tell that that's how corporate law works. If Gautam or Achyut would like to add up a few pointers on the same, specifically about what international corporate law is and what corporate law is, basically. Yes, please.
So, Saraj has very rightly said what international corporate law is, but however, international corporate law in itself is not a legal framework. There is no legal framework of what is called an international corporate law. For example, if we say criminal law in India, so we have a legal framework of statutes and rules, which is IPC, CRPC, Evidence Act, and different things. We say civil law, we have the land laws, we have the property laws, we have the civil procedure code. But when we say international corporate law, there's no such thing as international corporate law. What international corporate law denotes is the practice or the field of practice for lawyers. So it has a bunch of things. So it is a mix of domestic laws and international laws, especially where international law comes in place in relation to movement of goods and services. So to say international corporate law and its contribution of India in the same is quite will not be fair enough, because there is no such contribution by any country in that respect. We can say one such contribution by a consolidated contribution we can say that is UNCITRAL, where the dispute resolution system has been established. However, saying international corporate law, first we have to think there is a corporate law in every domestic jurisdiction. When a company or an entity registers itself in that domestic jurisdiction, and then it goes across the globe, or it crosses the border by any event or chance, it becomes an international corporation or a multinational corporation, not by the meaning of being an international corporation or being registered internationally, but by simply transacting internationally or doing its business cross-border. So whatever laws are related to that transaction or related to those business and commercial activities, the bundle of those laws is called international corporate law, and it is rather a field of practice for lawyers than a legal framework. Yes. Anything more to add, sir? Gautam, sir?
I guess most of the points are covered by Pankil and Achyut in this moment.
Yes.
I would just add in a very basic point that as an attorney who wants to practice or who wants to have an career in international corporate law, so the responsibility as a company or a law firm or as an attorney which comes into practices is like we have to be very responsible for ensuring that the client company is aware of and abide by the laws of each individual country or nation. As Achyut sir said, international corporate law is nothing. It's just like laws of different natures and companies, like Pankaj sir mentioned that like companies of different people who have been operating from India, but they have their satellite companies in maybe US or UK or maybe another country. So in such circumstances, the attorney may advise the company or maybe an individual about the functional matters such as size, location of manufacturing plants, how to hire employees, how to keep your IP secure, and other things like the local laws and the labor laws which would be affecting and environmental laws. So I would say an international corporate attorney is responsible for making his client in whichever country or whichever nation or the person is residing or a satellite company is operating. For example, a Canadian company is required to follow Canadian laws of manufacturing. But if it sells its customers to US or maybe I would say Spain. So if you sell, if you are dealing into defense goods and if you are selling it in US, so you have to abide by ITAR also. Though you are a Canadian company, but you have to follow international traffic arms rules and regulations. But if you are situated and if you want to send your goods to Europe, then there is EAR, European regulations, which you have to follow. So that's what a international corporate attorney has to deal into, I would say on this note, and I would like to end it. Anything you would like to add, Achyut sir and Pankil sir?
Perfectly fine, I guess. Everything has been covered by you guys. Yes. And
Thank you.
if the listeners have any questions, then we are open to it, definitely.
Yes, participants, if you are having any question, you can just drop it in the chat box. We'll be taking it up after every topic we discuss. So, sir, can we move on to the next topic? Okay. So, our next topic is about globalization of corporate law. So, please put in your views in this. Am I audible?
Yes. Pankaj, sir, if you could start, please.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
globalization of corporate laws, right?
Yes, sir. Globalization of corporate.
So I would say globalization. I mean, corporate law and globalization are interconnected because I'm sorry. Globalization itself is comes into the picture when a company or a business that expands. Basically, if a company is registered in India and the owners and the partners of the company they decide to expand the business across the globe or maybe in specific countries where they find that that might be fruitful for them, then just telling you about how globalization happens. And so once a company spreads its wings, spreads its businesses to different countries, as Gautam sir and Achyut sir described rightly, that corporate law is not specific thing that any legal framework would cover it, but definitely when a transaction happens, such business transaction happens, corporate law comes into the picture. And the globalization has specific roots. And the reason of globalization, I would say the major reason of the globalization is today's literacy and awareness about the internet. The internet has played a very major role in globalization. 10 years back, 15 years back, globalization and corporate law were not that prominent and widespread. But because of the internet, because of the usage of such easy usage of internet, nowadays you can see that any person who's opening a company in India, within a year or so, if the business grows and if they are doing good in their business. Let's talk about tech industry or any IT industry. If they are doing good, it has become really easy because of the internet. It has become really easy to expand your business to across the globe, basically, not specified any specific country, but across the globe. So if you're a company, you're doing good and you're expanding and you want to expand, internet plays a major role, and that's where the corporate law comes into the picture. You as an attorney, you as a corporate lawyer, it's your job to help companies and your clientele with the regulations, policies which are widespread across the countries, because law of the land is different. If you talk about India, India has a different set of laws. If you talk about IT Act, if we talk about Europe, there's GDPR. If we talk about US, there's COPA, HIPAA. If you talk about UK, there's UK data protection laws. So every set of country has their own data protection laws, all types of online regulation laws, and that's where corporate law and other law of the land comes into the picture, and that's how it's connected. According to me, that's how it's connected to globalization, and internet plays a major role in it. That's it from my side as of now. Please, both of you guys, please, Achyut sir and Gautam sir, would be great if you could add some highlights to it.
Yes, sir. So, corporate law and globalization you have to see in two lights. Firstly, globalization as a social phenomenon, and secondly, globalization as a legal phenomenon. Now, globalization as a social phenomenon, we'll not be going to that aspect, but globalization as a legal phenomenon in corporate law, particularly, is based on three-legged stool. The first one is ownership, the second is liability, and third is taxation. So the entire framework of globalization and corporate law is based on these three things. Firstly, how to trace ownership, who is the owner of the corporate. What happens is, you must have heard of some Panamanian law firms which were establishing shell companies for rich people, and they were stifling money, laundering money. So what happened? The ownership of the corporation was very difficult to track. So when we talk about globalization, and when one company is situated in some country, some jurisdiction, it is owning some other country located in another jurisdiction, and that company is owning some other company which is located in another jurisdiction. So the tracking of ownership is very important in globalization. So the first, not the legal framework, but the first issue that arises is the ownership and the tracking of ownership in the globalized world, when we come to law and corporate law in globalized world. Second is liability. The most important case, as everyone is aware of, liability and taxation, both consolidated, combined one, was the Vodafone case. Now, Vodafone company said we have already paid the amount in England, where the jurisdiction is based. However, Indian government said no, you have to pay the liability and taxes over here in India because you did the merger and acquisition and everything over here. So the second issue that comes in globalization is the issue of liability. Which jurisdiction, which people are the liability lays upon? Who have that liability to pay? To whom that liability is benefiting? And third is taxation. How the taxation will work? Where the taxation will go? Where the money of taxation will go? Who will pay the taxation? Taxation to whom it will pay the taxation? These are the three key issues. Now, in these three key issues, there is a convergence of international law. Now, international law, not the academic definition of international law, but law which is going around in every country. So, the underlying principle of each law in all the countries today is
Actually, your video is it's stuck, I guess.
I think there is some issue from Sir's side. Uh,
Gautam sir, I guess sir is facing some technical issue. Can you please start sharing?
So, globalization of corporate law. Let's us talk about on the live two cases. One was the case of Jaguar Land Rover, which was won by Jaguar Tata Company against Jingliang Motors in China. So, what this Jingliang Motors did was they exactly copied the design and the technology of Jaguar, and they were importing it and exporting it as well, and they were manufacturing it in China. The IPR laws in China are not very good and supportive. So in 2018, they launched 5 unique features with the name of Landwind X7, and these were built by Xiangling Motors. So seeing all these things, and after Tata winning the case in April 2019, so we get to know how much corporate laws have been into global field. Next is the case which is ongoing right now, Singapore Tribunal to hear Amazon Future case on the RIL deal. So these are one of the prominent examples which we can use as how much corporate law is going into globalization, and most probably the reason behind, I would say, is the treaties among the companies, or sorry, treaties among the countries which have been signed. Like for example, a patent act is signed internationally by X number of countries, a trademark act is signed by X number of countries, which helps each country to maintain similar laws on a particular field. For example, IPR, they have a lot of laws which are same all over the world. And for example, international corporate law. So if you look into corporate laws of India as of now, the Cadbury, the Satyam case which happened in India in the year 2020s was a similar case which happened with Cadbury in 1992 in United Kingdom. So now IBC and other laws which are being developed in more of the countries, or if they are putting it into action, so they are just making it sure that all the laws of different countries are also in line with them. So that's how a globalization of corporate law is being looked into.
So
Is
we
there
have
anything you would like to add?
No, I guess it's perfectly fine. I mean, it's everything is covered by Gautam sir and Achyut sir. We can proceed, I guess. If any one of you have any questions, we would like to address that.
so we have received some questions in our message box, but I think we should proceed with the next topic because I guess they will be covered in that topic. So, sir, the third topic is what skills are required to achieve success in the corporate world, especially as a lawyer, and what are their scope in the upcoming years in India?
What are the skills? Okay, that's the purview of that question is huge. So because we cannot jot down this number of skills and the type of skills you need to possess to become any type of lawyer, not just be a corporate lawyer or a litigating lawyer or any other profession. So, but what I would say, I would like to share my personal views on it. Other people might differ or might agree with the same. So, according to me, to become a good corporate lawyer, any type of lawyer, I would say. I mean, there are no specific skills to become a corporate lawyer or become a litigation lawyer. You should be. There should be a balance of everything. It should, your attitude, your the way you take your career as. But the two most important things, according to me, would be you should be book smart as well as street smart. Some people say that if you're a book smart person, then you don't need to be street smart person. And some people say that if you're a street smart person, then you can overcome book smart people. But I would suggest that everything is required in when you go ahead, when you pass your exams, when you go ahead with your career. Some of you might become litigation lawyers. Some of you might become corporate lawyers. So to become a good corporate lawyer, you should have a good knowledge of Companies Act. You should have good knowledge of contracts. You should have good knowledge of all the corporate laws, basically business and corporate laws. That is the priority basically. Other than that, you should have a good knowledge of global laws, basically. Not just the Indian corporate laws, but you should know the policies and the regulations of the countries which rule the business world, be it China, be it US, UK, Europe. You should have good hold of the laws of the land of these countries. Other than that, you should be aware of everything that's going on in the market, in the legal world. And you should not just about being a good lawyer, but about being a good professional. You should possess certain things. One of them is a good attitude towards your colleagues, your seniors, your juniors. You should be a good human being at first. After that, once if you're a good human being, you can be a good lawyer and you can be a good professional, basically. Other than that, you should be aware of all these things, and you should have good hold of all the laws, as I told you initially. So this topic can go on forever, I would say, but these are the few things which I think, according to me, are important, and you can have a good knowledge about these things, and you can definitely. Hard work is the key to success, as everybody says. So there's no shortcut of becoming a good corporate lawyer or a professional. If you're a hardworking person, you can eventually. Success doesn't come to people who lay back and wait for success to come to them. But you need to hard work. You need to focus on the areas you have your interest in. So there might be some people who are interested in litigation. So I would say that you should not force yourself because of the society or because of the parental pressure. That nahi, mere mom dad ne bola hai ya XYZ person ne bola hai ki corporate law is better than litigation. Or if vice versa, if you're if you're interested in corporate law, then you should not do the other thing around. People are saying that judge ka exam de deta hu, ya phir I should go on litigation. If follow your interest, basically. If you have interest in corporate laws, I think no one can stop you from becoming a good, perfect corporate lawyer. If you have interest in litigation subjects, litigation law, nobody can stop you from becoming a good litigation lawyer. So I guess just follow your interest and never lose hope, and just keep working hard. Working hard is the base of anything and everything. That's it from my end. Thank you so much. Gautam sir, please.
Yes, it was really nice. I would say I've covered all the points, so I wouldn't have much to say into this. But yes, as Pankaj has said, कि जो भी करना हो, वो इस तरीके से करना कि सिर्फ करना नहीं है, उसको पाना भी है. नहीं तो फिर उससे कोई मजा आएगी नहीं किसी को भी. और कॉर्पोरेट एक ऐसी फील्ड हो जाती है, I would say, कि अब क्यूरियोसिटी होनी चाहिए. कहते हैं ना, एक आरएसटीडीएम का डायलॉग था, स्पार्क होना चाहिए बंदे में मैकेनिकल के. तो वैसा Pankaj sir. So corporate, I would say, if being curious doesn't come to you naturally, so practice by seeking out colleagues, ask them their questions, or just try to understand कि it's a very diverse field. In a corporate environment, when you are working or when you are practicing or you are thinking to make your future, you need to be well versed with very certain other things, because see, I would tell you my personal experience. When I'm working for a law firm, it's very easy to make my seniors understand what do they want. For example, they want this is a criminal offense and let's want to do some FIR or something. So I can directly say, okay, 156(3) में डाल देते हैं. अगर पुलिस स्टेशन FIR नहीं लिख रहा है तो कोर्ट लिख देगी. कोर्ट से डायरेक्शन ले लेते हैं CRPC 156(3) में. Coming to a corporate, and if you are dealing with people from the management or maybe a senior who is not from a legal background and who maybe is from a business background, or you have a client who is from a business background, so he won't understand what is 156(3) of CRPC. So he would be asked, he would be of the opinion, या he would be वो आपसे सोचेगा कि नहीं, हमको एक लेमैन लैंग्वेज में समझाया जाए कि हम इस प्रॉब्लम से बाहर निकल कैसे सकते हैं. So corporate in itself field is a bit complicated, because when it comes to clients or maybe your management, you have to understand yourself in the legal language make them understand in a layman's language. Because if you're going to talk about the legal things in front of them, so they would be like, I don't want to. I don't want to know about the laws and everything. That is your forte. I just want to know what is the solution to my problem. And in a corporate, you can get anything. It might be possible you are one day told, okay, deal into labor laws. On another day, you are told, okay, deal into environmental laws. There have been something, or in some day they can say, okay, now FSSAI license is there, or maybe ISO certification are there. So it's a very, I would say, it has a different kinds of thing which would come upon to you on a regular basis. And I would say CS does help us if a person is pursuing company secretarial course. So it does help you in achieving a better performance or better achievements in corporate field. I would say so. Achha sir, handing it to you.
Hey, I'm so sorry. I'm up in the mountains, so there's a network and technical issue over here. So, should I continue from where I left, or should I start something new?
I guess we are on the third question. So
Yes. So I will just sum up the last point I was speaking on. I was talking about the convergences of legal principles around the globe. So what is happening is various countries and various jurisdictions have now come up with certain established legal principles, and they're converging on that point and harmonizing the entire system. For example, how foreign companies will be treated, how taxation will be done, how liabilities will be fixed, how ownership will be fixed, is now virtually similar in almost all the working and transactional nations which are in trade and service transaction with each other. The main push came from the UNCITRAL model, which actually is a dispute settlement mechanism, but it came in harmonizing the corporate legal principles also. So I'm so sorry, then we'll jump on to the third question. What skills are required to achieve success in the corporate world as a lawyer, and what skills are, yes. So skills, I would say, firstly, you need to be very thorough and very skillful and very adamantly and bullishly studying contract law, because the entire corporate law, the basis of entire corporate law is based on contract law. So even the relation between two members of a company, for example, two shareholders of a company, or two directors of a company, or whatever it is basically the underlying system is the contract. So their memorandum of association or memorandum of understanding is the underlying the structure is of a contract. And then when companies deal with other companies or other entities, they deal in contracts. So that is the most efficient and most sound-minded way of doing so. So first of all, the skillfulness should come in contract. How contracts are drafted, how contracts are interpreted, how dispute mechanisms are inserted into contracts and how they're availed. And after contract is interpretation of language, because it is somewhere related to contract, because and going into corporate law, the benefit for a lawyer and the disadvantage for a lawyer at the same point is that you're a lawyer. So the disadvantage is you don't know the main corporate jargons. You know the legal jargons for corporate law, but you don't know the main corporate or business jargons. But you have the advantage there that you are a lawyer, so you can actually understand that and interpret that. So the second skill you must have is interpretation of words, especially commercial and business words. And I don't believe any other thing is required to start up a career in corporate law, because everything else is experience and is earned through years of practice and experience. Yes. So I think we should move on to the next question.
So before moving on to the next topic, I would like to ask if any of you, sir, have anything to say on this.
On how to be a good corporate lawyer.
Yes, yes, sir. The topic previous you were speaking on.
Yes. So anyone, should I add, or anyone is speaking on that? Because I think going off the track, you must be dressed well to be a corporate lawyer. So contract is the basis of everything. So whatever you're doing, contracts is very important to be skillful in corporate law.
Okay, so thank you. So then, we will move on to the next question. topic.
Because
Which is
I'm so sorry to cut you off. I'm
yeah,
just
sure.
yes. I'm so sorry to cut you off. One more thing, because see, corporate law, corporate lawyering is also based on two, three different aspects or two, three different streams. One is compliance, one is actual litigation of corporate law, one is regulations and everything. So it depends on which stream you are opting for. Because if it is compliance, you must surely know the Companies Act and certain taxation laws, certain accounting rules also. So for some, you might have heard, for being a good corporate lawyer, you must also read some company secretary material also, and some CA material also. So that is also very important. It's particularly for compliance. For regulatory purposes, there are some different subjects. For disputes, you have to have contract and arbitration, which is being used very enthusiastically these days in mediations and all that. Yes. So sorry. You can now proceed.
So shall we proceed to the next topic then now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the next topic is, what is the difference between business law and corporate law, and how far are they interrelated?
So basically, corporate law and business law, I would say they are the branches of the same tree. And as according to the, as Achyut sir told that we cannot specify that. It's really difficult and won't be a justifiable thing to do that. What is business law and what is corporate law? They are the branches of the same field, I would say, same tree. But if, in a nutshell, if I would, as per my knowledge and as a lawyer, if I can tell you that corporate law basically talks about the structure of a company, structure of a business, and more talks about the incorporation and activities of as an organization, its activities. And if we talk about business law, that talks about, business law covers the major functioning of that particular company. So if I tell you that what topics or what laws would come under business law, we can simply say that contract law, IPR, taxation, all this comes under business law. And if we specifically talk about corporate law, then the structuring and the rights and ownership of the owners and the shareholders of the company would come under corporate law. So that's it from my end. Gautam sir and Achyut sir, if you could have
Sir very rightly pointed out that it's a very mixed nut khichdi kind of law. That what is business law, what is corporate law, is very hard to draw a line between. But to understand very broadly, corporate law, as sir said, is the legal framework of actually regulating a corporate body, whereas business law is regulating the commercial activity it is into. I'll give you an example. GST, Goods and Services Tax, Goods and Service Tax Act and law, whatever it is. I'm not very familiar with it. But GST is not a corporate law, part of corporate law, but it is a part of business law. Whereas Companies Act is not a part of business law, but it is a part of corporate law. So you see the distinction? Now see, for example, there is a company. I'll give you an example. If there is, for example, say Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited. So how the company will be formed, who will be the directors, how the board will function, minutes of meeting, notices, shareholders, minority shareholders, majority shareholders, their protection and their engagement with each other, with their transactions with each other, their general body meetings and everything else will be regulated and governed by the Companies Act. It won't govern or regulate the business Bharat Petroleum Corporation is in. So Bharat Petroleum Corporation does not, Companies Act does not bother itself with whether Bharat Petroleum Corporation is in oil marketing business or whether it is in transportation business or whether it is in aviation business. It is only bothered about how Bharat Petroleum Corporation is running itself as a company. Whereas when we say business law, so the business of Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited is oil marketing. So there, then we have the petroleum laws, we have the GST laws, we have different VAT law in petroleum. VAT is applicable currently, and these kind of things. So this come on the under the umbrella of business law. Whatever business activity that particular company is in. So this is the broad distinction. However, these are all mixed up together. So we just simply can't say this is purely corporate law, this is purely business law. Yes, Gautam sir.
So, in my view, I would say the only difference between business and corporate law is, or would be, the corporate law focuses mostly on the companies or the Companies Act and everything, and business law can be something ranging from employment to contracts, to taxation to commercial transactions. I would say like this. So, I would like to end it on a shorter note that it's a very vast difference between both of them.
So, sir, shall we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So our next topic is, what are the roles and responsibilities of a lawyer who practices corporate law internationally? I guess Gautam sir has already thrown some light upon this initially. I'd like to hear from you, sir.
Okay, duties and responsibilities
Okay,
of
so-
a corporate lawyer, I would say. Okay, yes, Pankaj, please, sorry.
Please, Gautam. No. It's
No, I
okay if you can.
don't-
If you.
my name, sir.
Okay. Sure. I'll quickly put some light on it. Again, the question is quite huge, covers the huge spectrum where we are talking about roles and responsibilities of a corporate lawyer who's working internationally or nationally. So roles and responsibilities start from the very moment you get your degree and you decide to become a corporate lawyer. The very moment. Not when you start your career, but the moment you decide to become a corporate lawyer. And as a corporate lawyer, as a lawyer, you have a clientele, and it's your the most important duty to cover the interest of your client, the company you're representing, or the clientele you're representing. So the roles and responsibilities, the utmost and the most important responsibility and the role of a corporate lawyer would be to safeguard the interest and the liabilities of the company he or she is representing. And that's the basic role and the responsibility of any corporate lawyer. If we talk about the corporate lawyer who's practicing internationally, then the purview of the responsibilities become a bit larger. So I would quickly give you a simple example, a real life example of my client only. I have a client who a company who's an edtech company, and they got registered in 2016. And since the beginning only, they've been I have been working as a in-house legal counselor and a consultant for them. Initially they started very small. Obviously, as every company starts, they started very small. They were registered in Pune, and they were operating their day-to-day businesses in Pune. Since they're an edtech company, they grown humongously because of the COVID and pandemic situation. And today's for the if you talk about the company's today's situation, they have expanded humongously in all the major countries, including US, UK, Europe, and of course in India. So when a few months back, when they were expanding, when they're in the beginning phase of expanding their business in US, UK, Europe, they obviously they didn't know the legal obligations and liabilities they will have to face once they expand their business in such countries. So here comes the roles and responsibility. Here comes your responsibility. Why would a person or a company would come to you when they are doing good? Obviously, the role of a corporate lawyer is not when litigation lawyer का काम वहाँ पे आता है जब कोई person या company प्रॉब्लम में आ जाता है, या तो कोई ऑपोजिट पार्टी केस कर देता है, हमको उन पे केस करना होता है, देन इट्स रिक्वायरमेंट. बट कॉर्पोरेट लॉयर का जो रिक्वायरमेंट होती है, जो जॉब होता है, दैट इज अ बिट डिफरेंट. इट्स मोर ऑफ अ प्रिवेंशन देन क्योर. सो द जॉब ऑफ अ कॉर्पोरेट लॉयर इज टू प्रिवेंट their company, their client company, not to fall prey to such obligations or illegal stuff. So the similar thing happened with this client. So they were expanding at that time, and they didn't know what all the regulations and data protection policies and other stuff they have to follow. And if you some of you might be aware of GDPR, some of you might be not aware of it. So when you're a company doing business across Europe, you should be your website, your portal, or your app should be compliant of GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations. If your company is doing business in UK, your company, your website, your portal should be compliant of UK Data Protection Act. If your company is dealing in health data and dealing in US, the clientele is in US, and you're collecting some health data, your portal, your app should be compliant of HIPAA, Health Insurance Protection Act. And if you're collecting some data of children, students who are below 13 years of age, you should be compliant of COPA, Child Online Protection Policy Act. So these are the few things that my client at that time didn't know. And we as a team of lawyer, we as a company, I as a lawyer had to come up with all these things and clarify that you should be compliant of all these things. If you're doing business as an edtech platform, as an edtech company, if you're taking data of students and children who are 13 years of age, below 13 years of age, you need to have the consent of their parents under COPA Act. If you are not taking the consent of their parents, then you are liable to pay some hefty fines. Under HIPAA Act, if you are collecting some health data in US of your clients or the processors or users, then you should be compliant of HIPAA Act, where you need to have the consent of the people whose data you are processing or sharing with any third party. In GDPR, GDPR applies to whole of Europe. Initially, before Brexit, UK also used to come into the purview of GDPR, but now UK has their own data protection policies, and European Union have their own data protection policies which come under GDPR. So these are the things. I'm just trying to give you a gist. I cannot go on and on. There are so many things which you need to know, and that comes under the purview of roles and responsibilities as a corporate lawyer. But there are certain things, there are so many different things that are related to company laws, related to international business laws, international corporate laws. You should be aware of all those things, and your utmost priority should be to cover the rights and interests of your clients, the companies you're representing, and in what way you can help them, in what way you can safeguard their business. And that's where you get paid. As a lawyer, if you add value to any company and any business, that's when you can proudly say that I have safeguarded your business, and it's now your turn to pay me for the job I've done. So that's how it works, and obviously it comes out with experience, with learnings, lot of learnings. You should always be open to learn. As a lawyer, when you start your journey as a lawyer, you cannot stop learning. You cannot stop reading legal books. You cannot stop learning about acts, about all the sections and other legal stuff. So if you're a lawyer, I strongly believe that if you're a lawyer, you are a lifetime student. Your studies do not stop when you pass on. When you complete your education, or when you get your degree. The studies and the learnings go on. So that's one thing. You should always be open to learning new things, new laws, and you should always, as a corporate lawyer specifically, if you talk about, yes, you should always be very strongly be in favor of safeguarding the companies you're representing, their rights and their interests. Okay, so that's it as of now. Thank you so much, guys, and maybe Achyut sir and Gautam sir have a few more things to add on.
Yes, so I think I have to step in. Sir has he has expanded too much on that, so there's nothing to add to it. However, I will say just one thing, that one core responsibility or role of an international corporate lawyer, or a corporate lawyer who is practicing internationally for his clients, on his clients' behalf, his job is to actually build a bridge between different jurisdiction and his company. and how those bridges are mended, and how you will travel on those bridges. I'm talking too much on cliches and too much on phrases, but how you'll travel on those bridges and how they'll be mended, and which jurisdiction, how it works and how it does not work, and how it benefits the company, how it does not benefit the company. Your role is to inform your client about all that and act on his behalf accordingly. So, Gautam sir, anything else you think should be added to this?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yes.
Thank you, Achal sir. I think most of the points are generally covered. So I would say job responsibilities of a corporate lawyer. I would mention the very basic responsibilities. It might be making of an Excel sheet. It might be making of a presentation. It might be making of a SharePoint list, or it might be making OneDrive documents, or maybe uploading or scanning the documents and uploading it on OneDrive and putting an expiry date or something, or putting up into the software. So a corporate law, if you are put in the field of corporate law and you're working inside a corporate, you might have to do the smallest thing, and you might have to put your minds or brains into the biggest thing, which is operational over there. And I would say in corporates, I wouldn't say things go on a white or black basis. It would purely go on a solution or a resolution basis. It would be either gray or it would be either a off-white thing. Shanchi, over to you.
So we'll be moving on to the next topic, which is with the advancement of the corporate world, where do we see India's legal system in the coming years?
India's legal system is broken. To be fairly saying that it's broken, it's too primitive. It hasn't coped up with the international harmonization, particularly. So we stand very too much behind in the queue, and we are few of the countries who are unable to cope up with the international corporate regime. That is why in the regime change in last 7 to 8 years, this has been a very focal point of what we call the red carpet for international businesses in India. And still, the businesses are reluctant on these issues because whatever their experience in their own country is very cushioned and comfortable. And when they come to India, they have to face all kinds of, bashings and taxations and liabilities, and because fairly speaking, India had its own experiences in this field, particularly different kinds of how to say that irresponsible disasters caused by these companies. There was Bhopal, there was other different, except from disasters also, other than disasters, we had other stifling of money and laundering of money also, those issues also. So we are a very conservative corporate law regime around the world, what I think, what I've compared. Yes, sir. I think sirs, Gautam sir and Pankaj sir will put more light on this.
Well, I agree with Achyut sir, and there's nothing much to put light on. I mean, we are very, as rightly said by him, that we are left pretty far behind. But let's not just lose hope. I would say we are better than we were 5 years back. We are better than we were 15 years back. So the improvements are there day to day, yearly, decade wise. There are improvements. They might not be that huge or that impactful as in the Western countries, but there are improvements, and I would like to. I as a human being, as a professional, I would like to focus on the things that may benefit us, that will benefit us, other than things that are not good or not beneficial for us. So yes, obviously, as rightly said by Achyut said, that India is lagging, and there are so many things need to be that are needed to be changed or reformed and so many things are there to be done. But it's not just about laws. If we see as a whole, our country's situation is like that only in different sectors, all the different sectors, not just legal sector. So yes, we are advancing. We are doing our bit. I would request and suggest every one of you guys to do your bit, change it, and we as a whole legal fraternity, as a lawyers, as corporate lawyers, as professionals, have the duty and the power to change that. And I would say that is possible, and I'm sure that it will be different in upcoming 5 years or 10 years, and we'll definitely do better than we are doing right now.
I would like to add something to it, so that I think the main cause for this is that while negotiating with all these laws and how to bring them in action, we come up with lots of baggages. But the particular baggage that we are very different as a country. So we don't want to adopt laws or adapt to laws which are already in existence and in fashion or trend all around. So that becomes a very big problem. So if you all are going into corporate lawyering, particularly international corporate lawyering, you must always keep yourself away from baggages, that you are very different and you come from a very different place. You may be unique in your way of doing, but things are done in that particular stream, in that particular style only. It has to be done in that.
Exactly. Right.
So I guess we can start taking questions which are in the chat box, because it's 8:30 already. Yes, Harshit?
Yes, please.
Nothing, sir. We can move ahead. Shanshi, you can take over.
Somebody is asking in which process participation certificate will be provided. So I'm so sorry, we are not aware of it. Whoever it is. and
Okay, so sir, shall we move on to the next question?
yeah.
Okay, so what are the purpose and objective of corporate law, be it national or international? Gautam, sir, would you like to start with this?
Okay, Shanshi. The purpose of corporate law with national and international is just to make sure that big industries like Reliance and other companies who want to, or maybe one of us who wants to open their offices or law offices in international countries, we can have it on an easy basis. Because at the end of the day, we all are lawyers and we are operating LLPs and private limited companies. So I would say the main focus of the corporate law is just like, see, for example, if a company which has a subsidiary in UK and has a parent company in US and has a branch office in India. So if the corporate laws of each country would be a bit different, then obviously the taxation policy, the policy to other environmental laws and everything would be a bit on a different note, and it would hamper the home country to collect its taxes. For example, in the case of Apple or maybe Facebook, I'm not remembering it correctly, but either Apple or Facebook, one of them has a subsidiary in Europe where there are no taxes in a country in Europe. So what they do is they earn whatever they earn in their home country, they directly transfer it to that company in that particular country, and that's how they save around 40% of their taxes or billables, which would have been levied upon them if they were operating in US or any other company. So I would hand it over to Pankil sir and Achyut sir now for further details.
I think I don't think I have much to add on, because I have covered much of it in my previous.
I was not able to. Yes, sir.
Yes. So I was just saying that I have already covered the answer to the same question. So the part of it in my previous and the previous to previous answer and what I said. So I would like to hand it over to Achyut sir if he has something to add on.
I'm so sorry, I could not understand the question. If you could repeat it, I'll be able to grasp of it.
Yes, sir. The topic was purpose and objective of
Hmm.
corporate law, be it national or international.
So, as sir said, we have already discussed. The entire theme was this: that firstly, there's an international law, and the purpose of domestic corporate law is to regulate corporate bodies. Simple. So, there's no other purpose, I believe.
So we have received some questions from the participants. So shall we start asking you the questions now?
This is one of the questions, like what is the underlying reason why corporate governments have so recently moved on to economic and political agenda worldwide? I guess we can address this because I don't think so we have addressed during the this webinar of ours. Let me add in something in the starting phase that corporate, what do you understand by corporate governance? First thing, एक कंपनी जो एक खुद ही एक लीगल एंटिटी होती है उसको गवर्न करने के लिए एक सेट ऑफ बोर्ड या मैनेजमेंट या डायरेक्टर्स होते हैं। अगर वो बोर्ड या मैनेजमेंट या डायरेक्टर्स कुछ गलती करते हैं या अपने फायदे के लिए कंपनी का इस्तेमाल करते हैं, क्योंकि कंपनी अगर पब्लिक लिमिटेड है तो उसमें गवर्नमेंट का मतलब पब्लिक का पैसा लगा है, अगर प्राइवेट लिमिटेड हो सकता है बैंक से लोन हो, बहुत सारी चीजें हो, ऐसे फ्रॉड्स आज की डेट में हम लोग बहुत सारे देखते हैं जो हुए हैं। We have a case of Rotomac in hand, we have a case of Vijay Malla in hand, we have a case of Nirav Modi in hand. तो इसलिए ये इकोनॉमिक और पॉलिटिकल एजेंडा नहीं बना है, अवेयरनेस आ गई है लोगों के अंदर कि कंपनी से बड़े बड़े फ्रॉड्स हो सकते हैं और अगर उसकी गवर्नेंस प्रॉपर नहीं है, अगर मैनेजमेंट उसको प्रॉपर्ली यूज नहीं कर रहा है, instead of using a company for the benefit of a company or its employees or the people who are there, rather than using it their own benefit and purposes and drawing huge salaries as directors just because they have incorporated a big corporate and they are employing 500 700 people, it doesn't give them any authority to take the money which is from the bank, which is also a public money, or from any other institution or any ways, or public lending or maybe equity or debentures or any sort of thing, that they can do it and use the money from the pockets of the people and use it on their personal gains. So that's why the corporate governance has recently been very much highlighted in the economic and the political forums, so as to maintain that decorum and to maintain that honesty. When a company is being run by a board of management, then it's their responsibility to make sure that the company is run on a moral ground rather than just being using that company as a money making opportunity. Over to you, Pankaj sir, Achit sir.
I would say that Sangeeta, you asked a very good question, but the problem is you have asked it wrongly. You said there's a recent trend. No, this has been a time immemorial trend of talking about corporate governance, because you have to see in this way, that the perspective is this, that governments are also corporate in one sense. Because what is a corporate body? Any body which comes together, which has liability, which has elected people. The election is on different basis. In a company, it is basis, or the basis is shareholding pattern. In government, it is the basis is how much votes he gets, or she gets, or it gets. But this has been the question of contention from time immemorial, because companies or governments are interchangeable in their structures. So whenever a structure where public is involved in any matter whatsoever, where more than 2 people, 3 people are involved, politics and economy will come in. Because see, as Gautam sir said, today if a big company falls, you have to lay off around 10,000, 12,000 people, 20,000 people. That's a big political and socio-political economic question. Taxation, there'll be a loss in revenue, there'll be a loss in trade, there'll be a deficit in different areas. The image of the government, the image of the country will go down. That, for example, like America has an image that it has big corporations, but also America has that image that it has the worst corporations in the history, like Enron and WorldCom and Theranos. We had the very recent debacle of Theranos and things like that. So you have to see that corporate governance is always political, always tied to the economy, and there will be and there should be political discussions on these issues.
Right. So I don't think I have anything to add in it. Everything has been covered by Gautam sir and Achyut sir. So we can move ahead, I guess.
Okay, sir. Sir, I would like to ask a question from Pankil sir and Achyut sir. Sir, you already mentioned about theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge. We all know that they are hugely different things are hugely different when it comes to the practical field. And as Pankil sir mentioned, that it's nothing like if a person is having theoretical knowledge cannot grow into the practical field and vice versa. So, sir, could you please throw some more light on this? Because I guess there are a lot of students who aspire to become a corporate lawyer and is also on the process of it.
So, as I've specifically, what do you want to know in that? Because the question itself is a huge question, and the area that you want me to cover is huge. But as I said initially, that there are multiple things you need to, if you want to become a corporate lawyer. Chalo, let's put other professions, other fields of law aside, and just talk about corporate law and becoming a corporate lawyer. So there's nothing different in becoming a corporate lawyer than becoming a litigation lawyer or any other professional. The path is same, the process is same. It's just the subjects are different, I would say. So becoming a good professional lawyer or a good doctor or a good engineer, the process is the same. The books are different, the topics are different, the studies are different, but the process remains the same. The process always remains the same, and that is hard work. So if you want to become a good corporate lawyer, there's no shortcut to it. You'll have to study a lot. You'll have to be open to opportunities. There are other things that if you want to join a corporate law firm, if you want to join a company as a in-house lawyer or a legal counsel, or if you want to open your own firm, if you want to be a practitioner, an individual practitioner, that's your call. That's your call. The work stays the same. The thing you'll be obviously if you work in a firm, the spectrum of work might be different. If you work for a company, the scope of work might be different. If you run your own firm, the scope of work might be very very different, and the spectrum is huge. So that is your call. That depends on you. What end result you're looking for. For a person joining a company as an employee and working there as a legal counsel would be a better option than opening their own firm or practicing as a corporate lawyer. But while for a person B, practicing as a corporate lawyer, individual corporate lawyer would be a better option depending upon the circumstances than going after a company or a law firm for a job. So there's no thumb rule as such where I can say that to become a good corporate lawyer, you need to do this or you need to do that. But it depends, person to person, the situation wise, the expectation wise, everything differs. So if you want to become a good corporate lawyer, I cannot tell you that this is one thing you need to do and go ahead and do this one thing, and 6 months down the line you'll be a good corporate lawyer. Obviously, that's not how it works. There are multiple things you need to do. You need to study hard. You need to be open to opportunities. You need to plan ahead. You cannot just sit and see what's in your hand and how to proceed ahead. You have to think 6 months, 1 year, 6 years, 5 years down the line, and accordingly, accordingly act. And one thing that stays the same is, again, I'll tell ki hard work. Open to open to get new things, open to learn new things, to get knowledge and to share knowledge. That stays the same. Hard work cannot be replaced. So hard work is one thing, but yeah, there are so many other things. There are so many other ways which you can go ahead and still succeed. So there's no definition of success. Obviously, for you, success might be a different thing. For me, success might be a different thing. For other person, success might be a different thing. For becoming a good corporate lawyer, there are certain things you need to follow, which I've just mentioned. So that's it from my end. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shreyanshi.
Thank you. Achyut sir, would you like to say something on this?
There's nothing much to say on that because I myself, there's, for a lack of better word, I hate corporate lawyering. So I won't say anything on that, but I'll just tell you one thing. There's no thumb rule, as sir said very rightly. Experience comes after you join the practice, and you have to hard work a lot on that. But always remember one thing: read the rules. Don't focus too much on the acts. That is a very important thing because in colleges, the only focus is on the act. An act is nothing. The rules are the main part, the operative part.
That's why we write arbitration and conciliation rules as per.
Yes.
Okay, guys. So we are close to 9. Are there any more questions or yes?
Yes, sir. There is one question from.
It might not be possible to take so many questions. I would request that we wind up. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So there is one question from Dipankar Bhakta. How do I join a corporate law company?
Naukri.com.
Everything is online.
Taking my personal-
Dipankar. Yes, everything is online. Gone are the days where you had to carry your CV and go door to door for jobs and visit 10, 15, 20 companies in a month. And then also you were not sure that, how to,
I would say
whether
I'd
land a good job. That's one way. That's one way to do it. That's one way to do it. But yes, we cannot, we are not the right people to tell you how to land a job. That would be the last thing we could be able to tell you because that depends on you basically, how good a student you've been, what are your views, what you want in your life, whether to, what firm, what company you would like to join. And accordingly, if you're planning to, if you plan accordingly, you create your portfolio accordingly, I don't think there's anything that can stop you from, what you're aiming for. So keep your hopes high and plan accordingly. That's what I would say.
You ought to have ordered the food for us on Zomato. Yes. So I think everyone is. It's quite late now, so we'll move on to the conclusion,
Yes.
right?
Since we can conclude it.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. It was really an interactive, interesting, and informative session. It was really great. Over to you, Kulfur, sir.
Thank you so much, respected panelists, for joining us tonight. And I would also like to thank Shreyanshi for being a wonderful co-moderator and all the participants and viewers who are watching us right now. With this, sir, we can conclude this panel discussion.
Therefore, I would like to
Thank you
also
so much.
thank you and the team of Jogesh Chandra Chaudhary Law College and Harshit and Shreyanshi for organizing this event for all three of us. And Saurabh Bhai couldn't join in due to case logs. So I would like to thank you all for organizing this such a huge event and hope to do many more soon to come.
Sure.
Good night to all and give Saptak a certificate. He or she, I don't know. Is doing well.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So with this, I
Please
would also
provide
like to ask
certificates.
you, since
We
our
would be
union-
getting the certificate. No, right.
Yes, Taipura, you were saying something.
Yes, sir. So, since our union organizes and helps other students in internships, so sir, if any student from our college wants to do internship with your firm, so how shall they contact you?
Drop in the chat box. We will drop in the respective links. Email IDs, and the people can reply to it. Ligaver's email ID would be dropped in. Achut's email ID would be dropped in. So we can proceed with that.
Yeah.
Sure, sir.
Yes,
Thank you
yes,
so
definitely, definitely.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you,
Good
Achyut.
night.
Thank you,
Good
Pankaj.
Thank you so much.
It was great.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pankaj
Thank you.
sir.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Gautam sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night. Bye
Good
bye.
night.